Okay, so let's just go ahead and get started. I didn't know how exactly to handle these calls. One of the issues I have with this program is, although I strongly believe in its functionality and the progress students can make going through it, I have a hard time describing exactly what it is because it's so different than everything else that's out there. It's a completely different format, a completely different idea. It's one of the reasons why I host these calls and one of the reasons why I ask previous alumni to come on to share their stories a little bit in the hopes that they can perhaps be a little more eloquent than I can be, even as I'm discussing it. So, for those of you who are sure. I'm just going to do a super quick overview of the program. I'm going to let Addie and Helen talk for a few minutes, and then we'll open it up to questions for you guys and see if they can answer some things for you, or if I can answer some things for you that might be helpful. There she is. Hello. Um, with a much bigger smile now than the last time I saw her. That's good. All right. Um, so really, really quick, because I'm sure if you're here, you're getting the emails and you've seen the information about the 33 days program. The 33 days program is, like I said, completely different than anything else that you're going to find out there. It is a 100% different content, different mechanism for helping PA students get through PA school and eventually the real goal is to pass the pants, right? It was initially designed as a program to help students through what turned into a down pants year with COVID and the whole rest of the mess that happened there. And I was getting a lot of people reaching out to me for direct one-on-one help. So I created this program in an effort to help as many students as I could, but also because I'm not a fan of one-on-one training. I think it can be helpful. I'm not dissuading it entirely. I just don't think it's something that I'm good at training people to do in the sense that I knew that I couldn't move people enough teaching medical content and the amount of time and energy it would take me to sit down with someone one on one to teach medical content. That wouldn't make a lot of sense for your time, your money, or my time. I just thought that was kind of, it didn't add up to me. So I went a completely different direction and down a road that I've been traveling for a long time, but didn't have a good way to get across to everybody, which is the idea that although medical content is extremely important, it is not the thing I find holding students back. It just isn't. I find that the PA programs across the board are fantastic at getting the medical content into your brains and handing it to you. I find that students are incredibly intelligent and are in the place they are for a reason, so they're good at receiving that information. But what I find missing are a couple of other components, which is largely some very specific things we do around studying so that the information is there when you need it, some test taking techniques and approaches to test taking, anxiety management, especially that relates to tests and high stakes exams, and peak performance that you are the best version of yourself when you show up on exam day. And that's really what we focus on during this program. We spend there, and that's one of the reasons why it takes 33 days to do it, because we're changing habits, we're changing the way that you approach things, we're changing some of the ways that you do the work that you've been doing for so long. And that's not something we can do in a weekend, right? It's not something we can change overnight. So it takes us a little bit of time to do it. So it's significantly different than a 3 day cram course in that sense, for sure. But once again, from all the work I've done over the past 10 years, I found, I think, two students who are short on medical content as their main problem. I've dealt with hundreds of students who have issues in one of these other areas, if not multiple spots of these other areas. And again, the people who've gone through the program can maybe we can fill in those holes for you a little bit and let you know what they kind of thought about that and where their um, problems may have been if there were problems. Um, so the program runs over 33 days. This one in particular is going to run from November 1st to December 3rd. And what happens is every single day I release a video to you, which the good part there is it's asynchronous, right? It's that you get to go through that lesson on your own at any time you like. I decided early on I didn't want to interfere with your work, with your day. I wanted you to be able to get everything done that you could get done, and then use this um, as something to help you, as a framework to help you, but not to get in your way. That was one of my main goals when I designed the program. So you get a lesson every day for 33 days that builds on all the things that we've talked about, and it builds over those 33 days to teach you everything that you're going to need to know in order to improve your grades, improve your test scores, and again, be that calm, cool, collected person on exam day so that you can demonstrate the information that you've learned and that you've studied for so long, and you can get the most out of everything that you've done. And so those will be the lessons throughout the 33 days. That's the major backbone to the program. On top of that, we have a group setting so that everyone's going through the same material at the same time. Everyone's going through the same lessons, and the people getting ready for their pants are going through the same content material. If you're in your didactic year or your clinical year, it's going to be a little bit different for you. You're not going to be studying directly towards the pants, but usually there's a group of close to half the people in the program are getting ready for their pants. So those people will be going through the same content together. Doing all of this at the same time together really builds a community and gives people a way to see others in the same situation. So if you're struggling in school but don't really have anyone to talk to, if you failed the pants and you feel like you're very much on your own and alone, this system allows you to see other people in your same situation doing the same struggles and in the same places. And that's been really beneficial to people. It also allows you to find other people to work with who may be in the same situations. We've had people in the last few cohorts who have set up whole systems of teams of people working together, meeting either daily or weekly on their own. And actually, even once this program has ended, they're still meeting with each other as they move forward. So there's a whole lot there to that aspect of it. There's a lot more to the program, but I think I'm going to pull up here and let Helen. Actually, let's Addie. Why don't we let Addie go first, and then Helen, we'll get to you in just a second. Um, I'm going to have Addie sort of share her story a little bit, and what I want to do, I'm going to frame your conversation just a little bit, Addie. If you could just tell a little bit about where you were, why you joined the program initially, the transition as you moved through it, how you felt about it, and then sort of where you are now and how things are going for you. And we'll sort of go from there.
Okay, hi. So my name is Addie, and I graduated from Duquesne University's PA program. And during my clinical year, I was not passing my end of rotation exams. And I felt like I was doing everything, like studying as the best I could, and I just really wasn't seeing the success there. So Brian actually came out to our program for a day, and just with that one day, that was the next COR was like the closest to passing score I had. Wasn't passing. So I did 33 days to the PANTS program during my clinical year. After I did that, I was passing my EORs. So that was like the shift that I needed. It was the test taking skills and some of the other strategies that I just didn't have in like my toolbox. And I felt really good because my confidence was growing from that. And then the minute that I was done with school, I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down for 34 days, repeat the 33 days to the PANTS program. I had someone that Brian put me in connection with from my cohort who was doing the same thing. So I had some support and I went through the program. My PANTS was over 2 days. So I was really worried about being calm, cool, and collected, especially the day in between. But I was. I had, my confidence card, which is something in the program. And I just really went into my test day knowing I did everything I could. I had my tools from the program and I knew I had passed EORs. And I took it over my 2 days, did everything I could to grab some extra points, and I passed. So I'm really, really excited. I do think this was like the major reason that I passed was the 33 days to the PANTS program.
That's great. And I love that you tell the story about the starting with the end of rotation exams, because a lot of people ask, and I even had someone today who was they're actually pre-PA. They're starting in January asking if they should join this cohort. And I'm so torn when to tell people to join because I think I struggle a lot because I designed it for people getting ready for the pants and sort of in that end of rotation exam clinical time. But I also think that there's so much to gain from taking this earlier. I think she's going to miss out on a couple points that aren't going to make sense yet, but I think that there's also so much she could use throughout the whole program. So that's one of the reasons, Eddie, too, why I started coming out to more and more programs was to bring this material earlier on to students because I think it can be so valuable throughout. So that's great. Thank you. Helen, why don't you go ahead and hop on and tell your story a little bit?
Yeah, so I found Brian and 33 Days to Pass the Pants a little bit different than Addie. I was a typical, I was a very typical PA student. I went to FIU. They told us during our orientation week, you're either a student who is book smart and does really well in didactics, or you're someone who's people smart and excels in clinical year. I was the latter. I was a clinical girl. I finished PA school with like 4 or 5 job opportunities, and I was ready to take the pants. And my first attempt, I missed it by 13 or 14 points. So I was like, oh, this is easy. You can just tweak this, tweak that. I started working with Eric Fogg, who you'll meet in the 33 days, one on one, and absolutely phenomenal. And I still wasn't finding success. Then it started to get to a point where I noticed, okay, I'm feeling really isolated. I'm feeling really alone. I reached out to Eric and he recommended that I join the 33 days. And I did that. And as far as a community and just different ways of approaching the problems that I was personally facing really, really helped. And I agree with Brian. From everyone that I've met throughout the process, being a PA, struggling to take the pans, hardly anyone, if anyone, that I've met is a content issue. For me personally, it was a mental aspect. I was very blocked in a way. I let the anxiety take a hold. So on my fifth attempt, I found success and I passed the boards. So it was a long time coming. Brian can attest to that, but I'm finally over the hump. So I'm really thankful.
I'm so excited. I have somebody right now working on their last attempt who is, I think, going to be in the November. I'm trying to talk him into joining the November cohort. But it's a tough run. I'm really really excited for this. Is actually the first time that I've talked with Helen or Addie since getting to emailed them a little bit. But great stuff. Um, so fantastic. So really what tonight was geared towards, I gave us a brief overview of what the program is, very brief, because again, I think you've gotten most of that information already. I don't want to bore everybody to tears tonight. And then, like I said, I brought on Addie and Helen so you guys could ask questions. I'd love for you to, if you guys have questions about the program, about where it fits into your journey, about if it's appropriate for you where you are now, whether it's something you should do later, if it makes sense, what the structure is, how the days go. Would be great places to start. And again, and while I have Helen and Addie on the line, this is a great opportunity to get answers to those questions. Does anybody have something that they'd like to start with? I know this is the terror of going first. It's very difficult. No one, everyone's here because they understand everything perfectly. That's great. It's marvelous. Megan, why don't you go first? Why don't you kick us off? You must have a question.
Um, yeah, I do. And I think I was emailing you a little bit about this question too, but I'm scheduled to take my pants for the third time on December 4th. And so this would put me right up to when, like the day before I'm going to be taking it. So I guess I'm just wondering for those of you who did do this course, like how long did you have in between? Do you think that it would still be beneficial or if it's cutting it too close?
So
That kind of thing.
let me just respond real quick because I think I emailed you back about that, correct? And
Hmm.
one of the things I said is we do have a couple people actually. I just heard back from somebody this morning who passed hers, and she was took it about a week after. But I did give you some information about how I feel about it. It's a little tight, but it can be done. It's sort of we have to extra manage some things. But again, Addie, why don't you go ahead and
Yeah, I did give myself I think I literally gave myself 33 days. And that day before I had to travel for mine. So I didn't do anything the last day. So I did follow the program to a T. And kind of like followed Brian's kind of like study format with his like breakdown of, generally how many days you should spend on what topic. And what really helped me was like if I like cardiology, for example, like generally 4 days. If there were like a couple topics that I still wanted to like work in there, I would just do that and then move on to the next topic. It's not like your day can only be spent on one topic. So I really felt that that was a perfect amount of time. And by the end of the 33 days, I was ready to be done studying because I seriously did follow it to a T. So I think that that was kind of the perfect time. And it's like motivation because like, oh, I won't study today because I have an extra couple days. It's like, no, I don't have that. I need to just stay on task. And it was possible.
yeah. So one
I
of the
completely agree.
sorry, go ahead,
Oh,
Helen.
sorry, Brian.
I can't help but talk
No,
over
you're good.
everyone. Go.
I completely agree. For one of my attempts, I did it about a week out after I did the 33 days. And I did find myself being like, oh, I can just push it a day and I can move this. And I feel like if you're going to be on that crunch zone the month before you take the boards. So I think that this is a really well structured way of studying for the PANs. Also keeping in mind like how Addie said that moving things around, like sometimes certain days, like for cardio was 4 days, I kind of rearranged the things that were in that cardio day to kind of fit the flow that I was trying to achieve. For example, like I wanted to do like my hypertensives, my hypotensives all together, even if that's not necessarily how it was. So keep in mind that there are days that it's a lot of content, like lists, but you can kind of clump it in together in a way that makes it a lot more manageable.
And like they both have said, the what I've designed and the way that this works is the lessons that I put out every day to me are really the strong backbone of this entire program. That's where you're learning all of the tools that to use to help improve your scores. That's really, really the backbone of the program. The other pieces of the program, what they're talking about, are the content calendar, where I lay out for you the 30, what I would do if I had 33 days to study for this test, exactly what I would do and how I would handle that. We get into a lot in the program, though, what to do in your case if you're at exactly 33 days. Well, maybe you do want to sort of shift things just a little, or some people will be at 40 days. Well, maybe they want to shift things just a little. So there's room for that manipulation of the system. I try to keep people from doing it a lot because, as you heard them both say, you can easily get into a situation where you just start moving everything around, and all of a sudden, well, why'd you bother? And two, it just gets easy to push everything off, which is a main point to the content calendar in particular, is to have that push behind you to say, you know what, I have 30 days, and 30 days sounds like a lot of time to study, but all of you know that one day of not studying turns into 2 days of not studying, turns into 3 days of not studying, and it happens quick. So one of the real purposes behind that content calendar isn't to cram you into the structure that I want for you. It's more to keep that push behind you and to keep everybody kind of on the same page. So if you're in the group sharing resources about something you liked with heart murmurs, somebody else could say, "Oh, that's great. I'm on that too. I could really use that." And it kind of keeps everybody together in that sense. But there is flexibility in that. So it allows you to sort of maneuver things a little bit into your day. And like Helen and Addie said, for the November cohort in particular, we run into Thanksgiving and some other holidays. So you're going to want to, I haven't sat and worked out the calendar yet exactly for the November cohort, but whatever hits on that day, you might want to push to the day before and try to double up or so on and so forth. So there's ways to adjust it a little bit, but I don't want you to do too much of that. You'll see again once if you come inside how that all works. Great question, though. That's good. All right, who's brave enough to go next?
Okay, so I guess I will. So I'm currently just now starting my clinicals. I'm on my second rotation. Didactic year, I really didn't have a problem with test anxiety, but EORs just sound kind of petrifying to me.
Look at Addie's
So
eyes wide.
I mean, I did well. And like I had a good support group and everything behind me, but like Family Med's my first EOR, and I feel like there's a lot to cover, and I feel like I've been like divvying up everything well, but I'm just scared it won't be there the day of because of my anxiety kind of going and taking over. So I guess like, do you think it's beneficial, like even without taking any EORs, like for backbone basis type of thing? And yeah, I guess more so supportive going for the program.
Addie or Helen, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely because I wish I wouldn't have had to not pass like three before I finally hit success. Because the tests are so different than what you do in didactic. Plus, like you will have this, like that's the other thing is like the materials once you've done the program don't go away. So, I did the program, found success, passed a bunch of EORs, but then repeated the program, like all of the lessons, like from day one when I was studying from the PANCE. So it really kind of is like a good investment for clinical year, especially if that's something you're worried about. I think that that's really great.
And that's a little bit of what I
Yeah.
was saying earlier is I struggle with how soon to run this program because I don't have a separate program for the PANCE and for earlier students. I've just rolled the whole thing together and I've thought about breaking it out, but it also doesn't work as well. So some of the question mark is, right, is it a little too soon because you haven't struggled yet? So sometimes it's nice to feel that struggle, to feel like you need it. On the other hand, like Addie said, if you get this the earlier you get it, it's transferable to every test you ever take in your entire life. It really, truly is. I have students who come back to me and say, not only did I pass my pants, but I helped my wife pass her bar with the information that you have. Like it really is very, very transferable because it's about test taking skills, because it's about study skills, because it's about managing anxiety and peak performance stuff. So the entire program will go through some content stuff, but really it's not a content program. It's very much a building you into the best possible test taker and student that you can be program. So to me, the earlier you can get that and then practice it, right? Because then there are skills and tools we're going to go through. So one of the things for Megan that I'm always like, oh, I wish people come in a little bit sooner because I like to say I'd love to have you have a little more time to practice the things. Now, is it better to have them than not have them? Yes, 100%. But is it also nice to have them and then practice with them a little bit? Yeah, that's even better. Now, Megan's not going to push her test back to next June so she can take more EORs and practice. That's not going to happen. That doesn't make any sense. But to me, it does make sense to have that space is helpful. Helen, you were going to say something before I walked all over you again.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, so I think that definitely for EORs, I didn't take this course during it, and I did feel a little anxious, a little like, oh my gosh, did I study enough? And that kind of anxiety. So I think that managing the way that you A, study, and B, use your knowledge that you already have and be able to actually bring it out on test day, regardless of the test, is going to be crucial. So I definitely think that you'll pick up some things for the EOR, and then, like Addie said, then kind of retake it when you're a little bit closer to the PANCE. And when you have a test day around graduation and such, maybe starting it again would be a really good idea. But for EORs, if your program does the PAEA ones, what they recommended for our cohort was to use the Roche practice bank questions, and that's what we did. And majority of my cohort was able to pass really well by using those kinds of practice questions. I feel like they really emulate the PAEA EORs really well.
The other thing that I would say is I know like program rules are different depending on the end of rotation exams. Like I know some schools, like if you don't pass two, you're out. So my school wasn't exactly that situation. It was like I felt very relieved to that not be my situation. But if that is your situation, I would recommend this even more because like I wouldn't ever want to be in that situation to feel like it could all be taken away just by one exam. So I would definitely recommend it if that is your situation.
Yeah,
and another really so sorry, Brian.
No, you go.
I'm so sorry. Another really important thing that I would definitely recommend, depending on how you have them set up. I had family medicine, internal medicine, and emergency medicine back to back. So if you have a really good solid foundation on one of them, it kind of bleeds into the other ones, and that will also help alleviate, the fear around that. So once you have kind of like a solid study guide on, or whatever, however it is that you best study, for family medicine, you notice certain tendencies that tend to bleed over into others. Exceptions to that, I would say, would be like psych and women's health, like kind of completely on their own, but the other ones really merge well together.
Yeah, you can look at that as a blessing or a curse, having medicine first, having family med first, because you get to do everything. But then hopefully you retain some of it, right? So then you have that for the rest of your time. And you get it behind you. If you're me, then you're happy to be done with medicine because that was not my area of interest. Alexa, how about you? Questions, thoughts? You think you were going to get away from having to come on and speak?
I am also on my rotations, and Addie and I both go to Duquesne. I guess
okay.
Now she's graduated, so I got to talk to her over the weekend. I have taken my internal med and my family med, and
oh wow, great!
I've been struggling with those end of rotation exams, and she recommended this to me, and I talked over it with my family, and I really like this option of like kind of learning it early on, and then practicing it once I get closer to the PANCE. But I think my question is how easy is this when you're on rotations and you have that full work schedule compared to like just dedicating 33 days without any work or anything like that?
No, that's an excellent question. And I'm going to let these two answer because Addie will be able to really talk about that more, but Helen as well. One thing that I really thought long and hard about when I put this program together was twofold, that I didn't want to be in front of a computer all day with you, And I didn't want you to be in front of a computer all day with me. I didn't think that that made a lot of sense, regardless of where you are in your work, right? Whether you have failed your pants and you're spending 8 hours a day, you still don't want to spend that with me. Not for 30 days anyway. That doesn't sound real appealing. I don't have that kind of time to spend with you. So how can we make this work for both of us? And the system I came up with is a hybrid version where it is asynchronous. Like I said, those lessons that come out every day, and the things I ask you do on your own schedule. You fit them into your day, however you can fit them into your day. Some people do them first thing in the morning when the lessons come out at 5 a.m. Some people do it before bed, whenever they want. The only part, and then we have the community, which is essentially think of like a Facebook private group. It's a little bit different, but that's sort of the idea, where people are always on and can answer questions and pop in there. And then the only thing where you physically could be somewhere at a specific time is we do weekly group meetings. And unfortunately, sometimes people's clinicals run into those. Sometimes people have work or kids or whatever, and they can't do those. But that's the one time when we can all come together. You can ask your questions. We can go over things. The group is really amazing because when we get 20, 30 people together, they have better answers than I have. So I love having the group there to work through problems. And if you cannot make those meetings, though, they're always recorded and posted for you. So that's available as another option. So there's actually one person who is reaching out to me from the UK asking if they could work with us and how that would work. And I said, one, I'm not sure about your certification exam, but just like I said, the information's so transferable. I would sit and go through it with them a little bit more detail, but it's so transferable. I can't see that being a problem. But I've also had students in Alaska and Hawaii who have done the program without a problem because of the way we are working together, but asynchronous and together. It's very much a hybrid because I don't want to be in your way and I don't want you to feel like you have to be somewhere. I want you to be doing the work. I want to set up a framework to help you. I don't want you to feel like, oh crap, I got to show up again. Oh, I have to do this. I have to do that. Like that's not at all my goal. Sorry, I spoke longer than I meant to there. Helen, why don't you take that one first?
Sure. So yeah, I would say, given your circumstance with the EOR, the most beneficial thing for me was something that Brian just said. It's not, I have to do this. I have to do this. It's that mindset shift of I get to do this. And it was something that I really found out like on my last attempt, was that I sat down and I was like, I get to take this test. I get to prove that I can be a PA, that I am certified, that I have all of this. And that perspective change was something that I really learned through this program and that I was able to apply later on. And I did the program August of 23. So mind you, throughout this whole time, it's just those little things. And you go back and you listen to the recordings again, and it's just like, I get to do this. And you start making those little changes. And sometimes it doesn't happen over 33 days. And then you listen back to it again and you're like, oh, wow, look, that one thing I didn't understand what that fully meant, and then apply it again. So that's something that, I would highly consider about this.
Yes. And then like in terms of it being like possible during clinicals, I would because I had an hour drive, I think the time that I did this in February. So I would just listen to it in the morning. You can put it on like podcast mode. I'd listen to it. I set up for the week, kind of like going through the PAEA topic list and breaking it down, kind of like the 33, day program. You just adjust it to the EOR that you're taking. And then I just did the best I could. If I had a really long day at clinical or I got out later and maybe I only had an hour, maybe I only had 30 minutes, I would do what I could and know that like I'm still benefiting from the program and everything that I'm doing and the study journal and everything that the program is about. I would just do it to the best of my ability. And then when I had my free time, when I was just studying for the 33 days, I really was able to follow it to a T. But I just did my best in clinical year and still saw a lot of success. So I think it's possible.
And I think that's a really great point is 33 days is a long time. And when we start, everyone's super excited and everyone's like, yes, I'm going to do everything I can do and nail this. And then your cat gets sick, right? And all of a sudden you're derailed or something else happens. And it always happens because a month is a long time. So especially for you guys, again, for Megan, it's a little different because she only has a month. There's no other option there. But for those of you with a little bit more time, there are things you can do to sort of cushion that a little bit. I try to talk people out of that because all of a sudden 1 day of a cushion turns into 2 days of a cushion. Like I said before, turns into 3 days of a cushion. So I'm a little bit stern about some of it, but there's definitely some space in there. And again, it's a lot of it is self-driven. So you set up your day, you set up your calendar, you get through the first 3 days, and you're like, whoa, this isn't working at all. You come back to the group and say, what is everybody doing? Because this isn't working for me. How are you structuring your day? And then I or someone else comes in and says, okay, this is what I would expect. And this is really the focus area. If you have to drop this part, cool, we'll deal with that later, that kind of thing. So I think it's very possible. It just depends on your structure and your systems and the rotations that you're on. I did have, I think, one person so far drop out because of clinicals, but I think they were in surgery and doing 12-hour days, and they were just like, I can't do it. There's not one more thing I could possibly do.
That may be the one rotation that it would be very difficult on. I will agree.
The other thing too, and this is for the two of you, is that you have access to the lessons as long as you need them. I don't say lifetime because at some point I'm going to quit doing this, and hopefully you pass at some point, so you don't need them anymore. But you will have access as long as you need them. And then I also invite you to come back through a cohort later at another time at no extra charge. So if you do the program now and you're like, wow, this was great, but I really would love, and then 6 months from now, you're like, oh, I'd like to do it the month before my pants with a group of people who are all moving in that direction, then that becomes available. You can go through it again. I usually have about 3 or 4, maybe 5 or 6 people who are doing it for the second time through under those circumstances as well. I know I have at least one, if not two, already coming through the November cohort who are in that situation. So that was a long answer to your pretty straightforward question. Ashira, do you have any questions?
Hi, I don't. I'm sorry, I'm at work. I just kind of came in and came out.
Oh,
I'm kind
no
of
problem.
different than everybody. I'm in a RA cohort, I guess I can say. Radiologist assistant. It's the same thing as like a PA, but it's just specialized under radiology. So I'm just coming in, seeing what's available on the studying side. I take my test in January.
Oh,
So I'm just
interesting.
trying to see if I should take this course because it covers everything. So I'm just listening in.
I have a tough time answering because I don't know the requirements for that certification or that program. But I'm just going to add in because I think that you missed some of it. And you and I can talk separately if that makes more sense. But like I said, I don't know the specifics of what you're looking for or what that program entails. But I mentioned before that this program is designed for results for test taking. It's designed specifically for the PANCE for PA students, but the overall theme is becoming the best student and the best test taker that you can be. So I could see how it could apply for you, but I'd want to know more information before I let you sign up, just because I want it to work out for you and not make it something that's a problem, or not a problem, but something that makes sense. I do also, because this is such a weird program and so different from everything else, I do also offer a money back guarantee on the first 10 days. So that's not from the day you sign up, by the way. That's from November 1st to November 10th. So you get to see what the program looks like, what's going on, how things are working out. So that way you have a couple of days to say, oh, okay, I finally understand what the heck they were talking about. This does make sense. This is going to be good for me. Or you can say, wait, whoa, this doesn't make any sense at all. I'm out of here. But I do want to give you that opportunity to at least look around before you're forced into making that decision. So I do give you the first 10 days to go through everything, see everything, go through it just like everybody else. So that's an option.
Okay.
Great. Anybody else?
For whenever we do meet, roughly what does that look like? How long, time-wise, that kind of thing?
For the group meetings?
Yes.
Typically, it's Monday or Tuesday nights, based entirely around my children's sports schedules, and my driving them. And usually that we start at 8 p.m. Eastern time. 10 is the standard. Sometimes I'll bump them to later in the week, but then I feel like people get behind and things are getting weird. So I like to do it earlier in the week. And it's usually an hour, but honestly, that just depends on how chatty everybody is and how well things are going. So there's somewhere between an hour and 90 minutes typically is how that goes. And what I do in those is I just sort of review all the lessons for the week, talk about anything that people have questions on, because there are things that I go into as much detail as I possibly can in the lessons, but there are things that are still going to be new and a little bit confusing. So it's good to talk them over. It's good to talk over with the other members of the group how they're implementing them, because everybody sees things that, like Helen even said, she went through it a second time and heard things she didn't hear the first time, right? So everybody sees a little bit different pieces of what we do. So it's nice to get the group together to be like, oh, I took this way and this is how I'm using it. Oh, I did this way and that's what I'm doing. So it's nice to have those conversations. And then towards the end of the program, once we all have the same vocabulary and the same structure, we start to do question walkthroughs, which is I just bring up questions on the screen and have somebody walk through the question, read it. We discuss how they think it, how they're processing it, how they go through the answers. And it's really cool to get to see into other people's minds and how they do things. Because one of the things that I preach throughout this program is that one of the problems we all have is that we don't understand how different we all think, the different pathways we use to get to the conclusions, the different ways of doing things. You can have two people sitting at a desk, both look like they're studying, and they're both doing two totally different things. So it's one of the things I try to get across. And one way we do that is through those question walkthroughs. You get to actually look into other people's brains and see how they're moving through it and say, oh, I hate the way that you're doing this, or, oh, that's amazing. That's so much different than what I do. Let me try that. And that's really valuable. So those are typically, like I said, about an hour to 90 minutes. And that's sort of how we handle it. It's mostly a question and answer, but I do a quick run through of all the lessons to make sure everybody's up to speed. And then, like I said, those are all recorded. They're just Zoom calls like this with everybody on. And if you can make it, fantastic. It's much better, obviously, for the people who are on, because they can ask questions, we can interact. But I haven't, like I said, I had the gentleman who was in Alaska. I didn't even really get to meet him throughout the whole program until he emailed me that he had passed and was doing amazing. But he was happy because he could listen to the recordings the next day and go through it like that. So it works out really well for those instances. Anything else, Megan, Alexa? All right, Helen or Addie, do you have anything? Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, go, please.
I will just say too that it sounds like from what you said from the question I had asked earlier, I'm hoping that if I do end up signing up, it'll help too with some of my like burnout that I'm having with studying for so long for this test so many times.
Ask Helen about how studying for so long for this test.
Oh,
Yes, it's
yeah.
getting rough. So I'm hoping that that can help me stay on track for like the home stretch right before I actually take it. Because I'm noticing every day I'm like a little bit more resistant to log on and study. So I'm hoping that'll help.
One of the things that I can say definitely changed overall, like how I was studying, was I was studying the first couple of attempts, I studied at home at the same desk that I did all throughout PA school, and I found myself like literally screaming in my four walls. So then I switched over to a public library, which is great, but then I started to notice again, like I was getting distracted easier. And I would say about a month and a half before my boards, I have a private university by me, and they have the law school. And the law school studying, like their library is absolutely insane because everyone's walking around with big textbooks, and you're like, okay, I'm one of you guys studying something completely different, but I'm one of you. And that really helped me just to get out. So if you have like a university or something close to you, maybe see if they allow for students to come in and out, because I showed them my ID and they were like, okay, great. All you have to do is pay for parking. They don't even make you sign a fee or anything to use the facility. So that was really, really big for me. And especially for Megan, but for everyone else. As far as the material that I found was the most helpful for the PANCE, the All Things PAC question bank, I found was absolutely the closest thing to the PANCE as far as like types of questions. Especially because she does a really good mix of longer, I wouldn't say like UWorld vignettes, but like the longer ones mixed with those one-liners, which was something that I personally really struggled with because I was like, I don't know if I can recall like the pancytopenias and like go into detail. Like I don't remember that from PA school. So that was a really good mix. And then this kind of ties back into what you'll see in the course. And this one's more for Brian. You know how you do the practice test? So All Things PAC has a standard practice test that you buy. I think it's like 20 something, $30. That one was good. But if you get the actual subscription, you hit practice test mode. It makes you a practice test based on the distribution for the PANCE. So 16% of that is cardio. 10% of that is poem, whatever. And it breaks that down so that when you're doing that practice test, you're kind of in a way gauging, okay, I feel pretty good in this cardio stuff. I feel good in poem. So that was a really good tool that I found. And I didn't find that until like my last attempt. So that's a little pearl that I would love to pass forward because it
No,
was
thank
it
you.
was a game changer.
I push her stuff a lot. One, I think she's a good person and she's a PA but it's a single person who runs it, kind of like what I do. So I'm always happy to sort of to tell people about them. But it's also cheap. Like you said, she charges $30 or something for a full pants, which is great. But I have heard that full pants isn't as good as her question bank. So it's nice to hear that if you set it up with the question bank, that's better. I just hadn't thought
Yeah.
about doing it that way.
I have the practice test and I used it for, I think it was one of my first attempts. And I was like, if this is the pants, this is going to be super easy. That was not the case. But I find that the actual subscription, the $80, I think it is, was much more tailored to the pants. Especially compared to all the other resources that are out there. Like UWorld is really, really good, but UWorld's really, really expensive. And majority of the exam, you'll do a practice test on UWorld, and they're so lengthy, you get so tired. And the pants is not like that. I did it over 2 days, so I had blocks of 15 questions. Out of those 15 questions, if 5 of them were big vignettes, I was, yeah. So you have to, it's a really good gauge of the longer format and the shorter format.
That's nice to hear. I love the idea of the university. Going to study at just a random university. I was last week, and my oldest son was at a baseball showcase at a small college near us, and they didn't stop any. I just walked right in, and I could go to the library or do whatever. And I was like, "Holy crap, this is kind of amazing! I could find so many places to do work here that I never would have thought about before." And that's too far from me, but there are a couple places closer that now that you bring it up, I'm gonna have to check out. But you'll see, even Megan, you're talking about burnout. Yes, this will definitely help with that because again, the group helps with that. The content calendar keeps pushing you forward. The new things you're learning will teach you new ways to study as opposed to what you're doing. That'll help. But also, just like Helen said, change where you are. You can't stay in the same place. I don't know if you're doing that enough. I've actually taken the posting on my Instagram every new place that I go to study every couple of days, or not study for me, but to work on this because I think it's so valuable. It's so easy that you get. But being out in the world as opposed to being in your, I find like today I was home all day doing work here. And I hit the end of the day and I'm a little twitchy. But if I go to a coffee shop and there are other people working, somehow it's different. Like I don't get that same feeling at the end of the day, like I was just drugged through the day and I'm miserable. I get this like everybody's working on stuff. I feel kind of energized by it, even though, who knows what they're doing or if they actually are even working, but it just feels different. So there's a lot of different ways you can incorporate ideas, but just changing locations is a huge, easy one. All right, Helen or Addie, do you guys have something just to wrap us up for tonight? If nobody else has any other questions?
I think like when you're going through the program, if you decide to do this, you just have to trust the process.
That's a big one. Thank you.
And it's worth it. Like it's gonna work. You gotta trust it. You have to do it, and it'll pay off. But you have to believe and put in the effort. It'll work.
I'm gonna clip that out, and you're gonna show that on day one for people. Because it's just so different that I do get a lot of people who will start emailing me in the first 2 days of like, wait a minute, what are we doing? Because it's so different, and that's usually my answer is just give me the end of the week, give me and it'll settle in and you'll get it and it'll be great. Stick with me and you'll do well. But those first couple of days, just like this, is why I'm having this meeting because it's a little hard to describe out of the box. Sorry, Helen.
No, you're good. Yeah, piggybacking off of what Addie said, it's the same idea of when you start a new workout and the next day you wake up and you're so sore and you're like, I don't think I am made for this. And then you slowly start to do it again and again and again. And it starts to build this muscle memory that by like day 10, you're like, wait, this makes sense. It really goes with everything that you've done through PA school really, really well. And I love the fact that the focus of this isn't content. Because think about it, we have every single book that you can think of, every single question bank, and we get drowned in it so easily. I was one of them. I was studying with 10 books open and they all said the exact same thing. But the biggest thing that I would say is definitely do your dailies every single day. At the beginning, you'll see it's a list of things that you should do every day aside from studying. And it gives you this mental break from studying that is enough to recharge and push you throughout the day, depending on how you space them out. So that was something that for me was crucial, and I still do them to this day. I finished my 40 ounces of water this morning, and I was like, Brian will be so proud of me.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that you're still doing it. I'm struggling. I don't always get to it, but I do my best. It does make a big difference. All right, great. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. I really appreciate hearing your stories. It's so good to hear from you guys. Like I said, I haven't talked to either of you live and in person since you passed your exams, so congratulations on that. That's amazing, and I appreciate you guys turning up to encourage these folks to join and do well moving forward. But I think even just what we talked about tonight is helpful regardless. So I'm glad for that. So I just want to say thank you to the two of you, and thank you to everybody else for coming tonight. I hope we got your questions answered. If not, just shoot me an email. Certainly be happy to answer anything else you have. Registration does close on Friday. No, I'm sorry, Saturday. It closes on Saturday. So you have a couple of days to think it over. But certainly if you have any other questions or any other concerns, certainly just reach out to me and we'll see if we can't solve those for you. But it was nice meeting everyone. And I think that's it, unless anybody has anything else. All right. Well, have a good
Thank
night. Take
you.
care. And it was great meeting you guys. Have a good night. You got
Good luck.
it.